Well, I understand, Tom, that you have a special guest flying in just for this special holiday
Yes.
edition.
Oh, yes. Well,
Okay.
Brad Hayes, Director of Barbers Point Naval Air Station. Do you read? Why don't you beam on in? How's that? Well, look who beamed aboard. We have the director of the Barbers Point Naval Air Museum,
Merry Christmas.
Director Brad Hayes.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you for beaming on.
Beamed on in.
Okay.
Enterprise is cruising by.
You know, a lot of people heard of this museum, but haven't really had a chance to visit it yet. So what would you recommend to the viewers? Let's just open up a little bit and talk about the museum and what you're doing over there.
The museum was formed in '99
for
the specific purpose of saving what was on the air base when it closed. Because we knew the base was going to close. Barbers Point Naval Air Station became Olelo Airport and everything else. So to keep the history there more for our local area and residents, we started a museum. And it involves airplanes that were stationed there, vehicles that were stationed there, things like that, fire trucks and things like that that were on the base. The base's scope, our museum scope of coverage, if you would be Marine Corps Air Station Ewa Field, Barbers Point Naval Air Station, because they were both next to each other. Later on in the 50s, the air station on the Marine side closed, and the property was assimilated by the Navy. So we cover that whole history from 1942 till now for just Barbers Point Naval Air Station. Marine Corps Air Station Ewa Field almost has, previous to that, its own little history. So that's kind of neat. So that's kind of our Kuleana. We're not a tourist attraction per se. We're for the local teacher to bring her class down and teach about history. Or if you want to talk about aircraft, you can come down and we'll tailor your school tour for talking about what makes that helicopter fly or whatever the airplane has features-wise that get it in the air.
So one can schedule with you an appointment, and you can give them all your attention and talk in such a fashion to a 3rd grade level or a 7th grade civics class.
I've done Head Start.
You can do. Oh, you've done.
Oh
okay.
my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in generalizations, though, how does the Jane and John Doe public, or even a tourist who came here and wants to go to a museum, what are your hours?
That's it's a little tricky because it's all volunteer manned, so we do it by appointment still. On the weekends, typically people are there working on stuff or fussing with old machines or whatever, and we still, because it's on an airport, there's a security issue, and we have a fence, and we have to control the entry and exit off the airport. So it's still by appointment, but if they call the telephone number at the Air Museum and ask if anyone's going to be there tomorrow, or it's really kind of a try to keep it operating like a public facility like you would ideally want, but it's not possible because it's on the airport and because we have all the security restrictions. So.
What kind of planes do you have there?
We have we don't have anything really truly up and restored from World War II, but we do have a C-47. We have a C-45, which is like a twin-engine prop plane that was actually stationary at Barbers Point Naval Air Station.
How old? What's the oldest plane?
1942.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that one actually isn't on display yet. It's not at the airport at Honolulu, so it has to be taken apart.
Folks are working on that one.
Yes.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
What I love about your museum is the kids can really go and sit in the cockpit and press all the buttons, and I don't think any other museum allows them to do that. My nephew said he had the most fun at your museum.
Cool. Right on.
So we're definitely going to bring him back there.
Awesome.
And I think my husband kind of had a lot of fun too.
He was digging it, yeah.
He didn't want to admit it, but he
right.
enjoyed sitting in the cockpit and
fun.
pretending to fly.
We just had someone that was, he was the Commodore for Naval Amphibious Squadron 3. So his flagship was the USS Peleliu. This guy he was just here. And it's an admiral's job, but he's a Navy captain. So he's got like 7 or 8 ships, and he got in the front door, and I guess he learned to fly on a Sea King helicopter, which we have 2 of. And he got to sit in that thing, and it's the first time he had sat in one in years since he had flown it last, and he was like, "Oh man, I can't believe I'm," you know. So he was like a little kid too. He thought it was the coolest thing since sliced bread, and it's really not much. We have a flight line with some aircraft. We don't have a building. You know, when people think museum, they think building with glass cases, and the closest thing we have to glass case is the lobby in the Kapolei Library. That's about it.
What about Senator John McCain? Isn't there the aircraft that he was in that went down in Vietnam? You also have
they're the same type of A4 model that he had been shot down in 1967. Same model airplane. They built about 500 of them, and his is at the bottom of Trubac Lake in Vietnam, but ours is on the flight line. You can walk up to and touch it. Yes,
yeah,
it's
very exciting.
Well, it's